South Florida, they were listening closely to President Obama's speech today.
And he spoke directly to them as well. Cuban exiles here. So let's get to Local 10 News reporter Glenna Milberg. She's joining us live from Miami with reaction. And Glenna, he mentioned Miami at least 4 or 5 times, didn't he?
He did, and where we are, Lori, Janine, in Miami, is we landed at the Cuban American National Foundation. The office is here, and this office was filled with people glued to the television sets on the wall watching this speech. And what's so significant about this is that the chairman of the board here actually was one of the people who had a hand in framing for the president what he would say in his speech directly to the Cuban people for the first time. An extraordinary opportunity, and by all accounts here, they feel like he really scored, with some small exceptions. But really, this first time that the Cuban people heard directly from the president that the United States is not their enemy. This is a huge myth busted, because most of these people have grown up listening to the Castro regime blame the U.S. for all of the ills and all of the misery they may face. So that was really an important headline to the people here today. And the other thing was that this speech was supposed to be empowering, saying to the Cuban people, the future is in your hands. Here are the tools that you need. And there were 3 very specific tools that the chair here had mentioned to the president that he had hoped he had mentioned, and he did. Direct employment, not employment from companies through the Cuban government, but direct employment from companies to employees, a free and open internet. There is the start of that there, by no means the end of it, but certainly the start. And a single currency. They don't want people to be empowered with an American dollar when other people have Cuban pesos. No, the single currency is a very important tool eventually. Understand that here there are former political prisoners in this office. There are people whose families, whose fathers had been assassinated by Raul Castro's people decades ago. And so for them, they would have liked to have heard the president to be a bit tougher on repudiating human rights violations. That was not a tough stance that he took in this speech, but according to everyone here, they think the speech was a step in the right direction.
It's difficult. It's a difficult position that the exile community is in, but we have to believe in our people. We have to believe in the Cuban people. And I'm of the belief, and I'm very optimistic that, they can be the architects of change on the island.
All right, I wanted to show you here, this is a list of political prisoners. I know it's tough to see in the daylight and the glare, but a list of political prisoners in prison in Cuba that the Cuban American National Foundation made a list of yesterday. You remember, after Raul Castro in his speech yesterday said in a very awkward answer to a question, "Oh, political prisoners, do we have them? Please send me a list and we'll release them by tonight." This office was one of many offices that compiled lists of political prisoners with no hope that they would be released, because the rules are quite different and perceptions are quite different there about who might be a political prisoner or not. And in fact, Lori, Janine, the feeling in here is that they're quite sure that these acts of repression and human rights violations might get a little worse, as Raul Castro's government might feel like it's losing control now that the president has spoken directly to the people. They expect this to get worse before it gets better, but they're quite hopeful that it will get better. I'm Glenna Milberg, live in Miami this afternoon, Local 10 News.